promised, here is my first guy, and it will be on Batman, which not only happens to be my favorite character in the game, but is my main as well. I main him in Injustice 1. I couldn't wait to get my hands on him in Injustice 2, so let me bestow to you everything I know about him and everything I found so far. Now, Batman is what you would call an all-around fighter. From his tactical defensive play to extreme rushdown and even zoning, Batman has a little bit of everything. In fact, he is what is considered in the fighting game and fighting games in general as an all-around character. This guide will cover the use of certain things and why it's used in the manner that I use it in, or just Batman in general, as well as how to just simply play him. However, I will have timestamps in the description, as I know many of you may be here for just the combos. Although I encourage you to give the whole vid a watch, as it may help you on your start to playing Batman. Now, for newer players, here are the notations based on the default controller setup. Basically, in the FGC, or just in the MK scene, or the NetherRealm fighting game scene in general, we refer to light, medium, heavy as 1, 2, 3, and trait as 4. Or in other words, we refer to square, triangle, X, and circle as 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, of course, you know, Xbox One, things like that, you know, X, Y, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll definitely put the notation in the description as well, so you can look at that. I'm going to be referring to lights, medium, heavies, and traits as 1, 2, 3, 4, because then it'll give you guys an easier way of getting the combos and stuff that you want. But I think that calling them 1, 2, 3, 4 will just help for both sides of for both console users. Now, let's look at parts of his moveset that we'll be using in neutral as well as just on block. Now, when looking at a character, it's very important to look at the first things you want to look at are the poke, the poke, the anti-air, and the jab, because first of all, when it comes to neutral in general, the poke is really good because that's going to be a factor as to how well you can get out of certain pressure setups and whatnot. Due to having a good fast poke will allow you to get out of them, maybe jab them out of them before it's too late, or kind of keep them honest. Whereas if you had a very slow poke, then you know it would be really bad. You wouldn't be able to poke out of a lot of things, and people would just run over you. Having a good jab just kind of plays out in combination with the good poke as well. So basically the same concept. And having a good anti-air is good because if people are just spamming jump or they're just jumping a lot, you can knock them out of the air, which is just good for just getting them off of you and saying, hey, you can't just jump all over me, literally. So starting with his jab 1, which starts up in 7 frames and is +2. So starting with his jab 1, which starts up in 7 frames and is +2 on block. Taking it a step further, 1-1 can throw your opponent's blocking powers off and is +1 on block. So that's just something else that you can do in addition to jab 1 if it connects on block. 1-2 is also very good as it is +4 on block. So that's another string that you definitely want to use on block if you connect to your opponent's block or guard. His back 1 has a 9-frame startup and is -5 on block, but also has a second part to it by pressing 1 again, which ends at -6 on block. It also has another part to it that can be done by pressing 2 or a triangle, which can be good for a mix-up here and there, but don't abuse this as it can be backdashed out of. 2-2 is emitted into a high that is a -1 on block and starts up in 9 frames. And of course, his poke or down 1 starts up in 7 frames and is -3 on block. This tool will be good for disrupting opponent's pressure. His back 3 and forward 3 start up slow, so this is mainly used when enough space is given. Back pressure is applied when your opponent respects you enough, or for setups in the corner, as they are both extremely plus on block. His jump 2 has good horizontal range and can be hard to deal with for people, as it starts up in 7 frames and is -6 on block. Now let's move on to his trait. His character trait, which is activated by pressing circle, calls upon 3 bats. By pressing circle again, you can release the bats. They are good for getting in on your opponent, putting up a good zoning wall, and linking strings together on block, although not as true meaning that your opponent might be able to backdash before you can get to them. It's very important that you release them in a fashion that allows you to get there in time for another hit. The hit stun is very minuscule, not allowing you to truly link strings in that fashion. Lastly, watch out as if Batman is hit or push blocked while he has bats, they will disappear. He can also press down circle to have the bat swarm around him in a defensive-like fashion. This could be good against an opponent who likes to jump in a lot, as you could activate it in anticipation of his jump, block, and then proceed to combo off of it. He has a double jump backwards, which is just a good way of creating space or just simply dodging projectiles. He can also glide forward, which is a good way of mixing up the timing or your forward movement by jump. Let's say you are jumping and a lot of opponents may adapt by spacing themselves in a way so that they can anti-air you or still catch you with whatever move they are trying to. Gliding can alter the movement of your jump and make it tricky to time said things. You can also do a mid out of his glide, which can lead to a combo, or an overhead, which can lead to a knockdown as well. Now we'll cover his special moves. First special move is straight grapple, which is done by pressing down forward 1. It is mainly a combo extension move and even allows for a setup, which I will dive further into later. You can use it to catch opponents from far away, but try not to abuse it. Down back 1 allows straight grapple to come out at an angle, which is good for putting your opponent back in the corner at the end of combos. Batarang, which is done by pressing back forward 2, is a high projectile, meaning it can be ducked. Its main use for Batman is that it can be Meterburn, making it plus 25 on block. This allows us to make all of our unsafe strings safe and further continue pressuring the opponent on block. What's interesting enough is that one change the developers made to the way push block operates is that it now isn't possible from certain ranges. You can play around with this concept after a Meterburn bat, as the Meterburn bat pushes back the opponent at a range that sets up the proper spacing, and if the opponent tries to mash out block, you can actually capitalize off of it and punish them for just mashing it out. Down back 2 allows the Batarang to be thrown at an angle, and like its other version, can be Meterburn and it's plus 25 on block. Its main use is to catch people jump and even capitalize off of it. Be careful about using it on block scenarios because of its angle. His next special move is Air Scatter Bombs, which is good for opponents who like to jump. It can also be Meterburn, allowing you to transition into his glide, where you can choose to hit out of it. Slide kick done by pressing back forward 3 is Batman's Wake Up, as when done on Wake Up, it's fully invincible. However, it's negative 37 on block, so do not, and I repeat, do not spam this on Wake Up. Only use it when you are sure it will either hit or maybe the opponent will jump, allowing you to slide past them. As if they aren't fast enough to react into this, you might not get punished. It could also be Meterburn, giving us some more damage. Lastly, he has a cape counter, which is done by pressing down back 3. You can only parry hits that hit high and mid, and in case anyone was wondering, no, you cannot parry projectiles with his. His super is done by pressing L2 and R2 and does 39 damage on hit and has armor. It's a pretty good tool to use on opponents who like to jump a lot. Be careful though, as on block it's negative 29. And finally, we're going to get to the combos. Well, I kind of lied. Well, we're going to get to the concept of Batman's setup off a straight grapple. Now, again, I told you guys I would cover this a little later, but basically, straight grapple can be Meterburn. And basically what it does is when you Meterburn straight grapple, it forces them to stand in a fashion like this. From here, you can actually go for a vortex, which basically a vortex is where upon your opponent guessing wrong, they are put back in the combo for another loop. So essentially, if they guess wrong here, I can combo off of it, and then, of course, I can go for another straight grapple and make them guess again and again and again, assuming they keep guessing wrong. Now, with Batman, it's a little tricky. Basically, it's all based on your spacing and the time in which you press triangle or 2, or Y if you're on Xbox One. Basically, you upon doing straight grapple, when you want to set this up, you stand back a little bit, and then you jump. Now, if you delay your jump to around here, he will actually hit in front of the opponent. However, if you press 2 around this time, you'll actually just cross them up. So you can actually probably catch a lot of opponents off guard by doing this and get a lot of damage, as jump 2 will lead into all of your high damaging stuff, and you can loop it again. Essentially, you could actually get 80%, or essentially, if they guess wrong, that could add on another 35 to 40%, depending on what you go for. And that's not even accounting for the fact that you could go for the Meterburn straight grapple again. So yeah, I just wanted to share this concept with you guys as it's something you're definitely going to need to get the hang of in order to be the best Batman you can be. Now let's get to the mid screen and corner combos that I found to be pretty optimal. Basically, what I did was I found the mid screen combos I have 3 variations. There's one variation which can be Meterburn, which you Meterburn for the straight grapple vortex setup. The other variation is to push them further into the corner. And then the third and final variation is a variation which just allows you to just trade up and you can set up a zoning wall. Although you can mix and match these and kind of play with them however you want, I just kind of found combos based off of these concepts of maybe setting up a zoning wall or pushing them into the corner or even setting up my 50-50 as well. In some instances, you can actually finish straight grapple and not Meterburn to put them in the corner as well. So there's that option if that's what you want to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the combos in a fashion of where you can clearly see them and have the inputs show up on the screen. I will not be talking about these because I've already discussed the main concept I wanted to discuss, but I will just be showing you guys the combos so you can write them down or do whatever you want to do with them and get on your way to playing Batman. Then at the end, I'll come through and talk. thank you guys for staying through to the end. If you did so, I would really appreciate it if you guys gave this vid a like and also shared it as well. I would really appreciate that. This video took a lot of time, but I wanted to get a lot of this information out there to help a lot of my fellow Batman mains. And so I think this guy does do that pretty well. It gives you combos, easy combos as well, because I understand that some people may not be able to do a lot of these more advanced intermediate combos. So I put those in there as well as gave you explanations for a lot of the good things to use and stuff and neutral and stuff like that. And ultimately, I feel like you can take what you learn in this guide and apply it to some ranked matches and get some wins. And in addition to that, just get better, just expand on this in general. So yeah, I will definitely be doing more guides. I would like to make a guide on every character in the game. Um, so yes, I do plan on doing that. You can request guides if you want, if you would like a certain guide made. If you want a certain guide prioritized over the other one, like let's say someone suggests Superman next, but other people are suggesting other guides. If you want that Superman guide made next, then thumbs up that person who suggested Superman, and that way I know, okay, let me prioritize this guide over the other guides, things like that, of that nature. So, yeah, I do plan on doing that as well as other content. I've got some other content for the game coming out, as well as some content that covers some highly controversial things in the game to help you guys get better at beating it. So I do plan on bringing that out. Uh, Ultimately, I want to thank you guys for watching again. This is Mysterious Man Toby signing off.